The camera opens on Washington, D.C., the heart of global finance and diplomacy. The flags outside the International Monetary Fund ripple gently in the autumn wind, while inside the corridors hum with a mix of cautious optimism and quiet tension. The IMF's annual meetings are underway, and the topic dominating both the hallways and headlines is unmistakable: trade tensions between the world's two largest economies, the United States and China. As journalists gather under the chandeliered ceilings of the IMF headquarters, Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva steps up to the podium. Her tone is calm, deliberate, but her words carry weight far beyond the room. "We do hope," she begins, "that there would be an agreement that would bring the current tension down." Her statement is brief but loaded, a reflection of the global anxiety that has shadowed markets for the past week. The past few days have seen an escalation in tariff threats and technology restrictions, sending ripples through both Wall Street and Shanghai's stock exchanges. Economists warn that another round of retaliatory measures could shave significant points off global growth. For Georgieva, the concern is not theoretical, it's immediate. "We will, of course, carefully calculate the impact," she adds, pausing for emphasis, should that become necessary. Across the world, those calculations are already being made. In Tokyo, policymakers scramble to assess the effect on supply chains. In Berlin, trade officials speak of strategic uncertainty. In Latin America and Africa, finance ministers worry about the secondary shocks to commodity prices and capital flows. The IMF's message today, though diplomatic, is unmistakable. The global economy cannot afford another fracture. As the briefing continues, Georgieva expands her remarks with quiet confidence. "You'll probably recall that in the World Economic Outlook, we do project a downside scenario," she reminds the reporters. "While it is not calculated on that specific risk, what it illustrates is just about what the likely impact of this kind of deterioration would be." She looks across the room, a crowd of journalists, analysts and delegates, pens frozen in mid-air. "It would have a material impact on global growth," she stresses, before offering a glimmer of hope. "But again, I want to stress that my expectation is to see that the path to agreement will be found, especially judging by the atmosphere we have witnessed in the room." That atmosphere, cautious but cooperative, becomes a recurring theme throughout the day. In a separate briefing, Mohammed Al-Jadaan, Saudi Arabia's finance minister and the current chairman of the IMF committee, echoes Georgieva's sentiment. "The meetings have been very positive, very candid," he says, his voice steady but optimistic. Members were able to exchange their views even if they had differences of opinion. The discussions were conducted in a civilized and very constructive manner. His words, though understated, hint at something significant: a willingness among nations to keep dialogue open even as their trade policies collide. Behind closed doors, sources describe moments of tension between US and Chinese delegates, but also gestures of restraint, side meetings, quiet consultations, and signals that both sides may still be searching for a way forward. The IMF's role, Georgieva reminds the press, is not to mediate political disputes, but to assess their economic fallout and help the world prepare. The fund's analysts have spent weeks running simulations. What happens if tariffs expand, if supply chains splinter, if consumer confidence dips? Their findings are sobering. A prolonged rift between Washington and Beijing could reduce global GDP by nearly 0.5 percentage point, a blow that would ripple from factory floors to food markets. In the corridors outside the press room, conversations swirl about what might come next. There's speculation of a new round of talks between US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng. Though neither delegation confirms the timing, what is clear, however, is that the stakes have rarely been higher. With inflation still a concern in major economies and debt burdens mounting across the global south, another disruption in trade could push several vulnerable nations to the brink. The IMF's message today, cautious but clear, is that dialogue remains the world's best defense. For Georgieva, the tone is personal. "I have seen in this room a readiness to engage," she says softly, glancing at the gathered delegates, "and that gives me hope." Her words draw a brief silence, followed by the rapid clicks of cameras, a sound that feels both ceremonial and urgent. Outside, as night falls over Washington, the glow of the IMF building reflects in the rain-slick streets. Delegates exit in clusters, briefcases in hand, their faces betraying equal parts fatigue and resolve. The world may be divided on trade, but here, in the heart of international finance, the search for consensus continues. For millions watching from afar, the message resonates beyond the economics. A stable relationship between the US and China means calmer markets, predictable prices, and steadier jobs. A breakdown, however, could mean volatility in currencies, in energy costs, and in confidence itself. The IMF, in its understated way, is reminding the world that these tensions are not just about tariffs or trade deficits, they're about the future architecture of global cooperation. As the day draws to a close, Georgieva's statement remains the headline. We do hope that there would be an agreement that would bring the current tension down. But beneath those words lies a deeper appeal, one for stability, trust, and a renewed spirit of dialogue. In the halls of global finance, hope is not a strategy, but tonight it might be the only thing holding the system together.
We do hope that there would be an agreement that would bring the current tension down. We will, of course, carefully calculate the impact should that become necessary. You probably recall in the World Economic Outlook, we do project a downside scenario. And while it is not calculated on that specific risk, what it illustrates is just about what the likely impact of this kind of deterioration would be. It would be a material impact on global growth. But again, I want to stress that my expectation is to see that the path to agreement will be found, especially judging by the atmosphere we have witnessed in the room.
The IMFC meetings has been actually a very, very positive, very candid, and the members were able to exchange their views, even if they had difference of views. It was actually expressed in a civilized way, in a very constructive way. I thought it was actually very positive, and I'm sure, you know.